this is it. Tomorrow, we're Mr. Avocado.
Ron Simpson.
Ron, before the opening night, you hadn't served a single plate, and yet by that point you had already accumulated 100,000 followers, 212 million views in the space of 2 weeks, 70 franchise requests, and people sleeping outside your store on opening night.
That's correct. I actually had quite a weird imposter syndrome thing going on when I was doing music. People started booking me and us and whatever until a few years that we did like European tours and we played like China and Suriname and Indonesia and Bali. And that's when you start to feel like, how did I end up here, right?
Yeah.
There's a million people who have a dream of doing that, and we sort of just did it. That definitely unlocks a whole new level of happiness.
Ron.
Yes.
Thank you very much for taking the time in what sounds like it's a hectic day.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I like to start all my podcasts with the exact same question because I feel like it establishes how the rest of the conversation is going to continue.
Okay.
And that question is, are you happy?
Yes.
What, in your opinion, is required to live a happy life?
I think the basic thing would be to know what makes you happy. That's a good place to start, and then you can start fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, happiness is found in little things, but it's also found in certain balance. So I think happiness is a state of mind. I also think it's not an on or off switch. You can, have happier days and less happy days, and that's fine. So I try to make sure everything I do contributes to my happiness, and that it doesn't matter what that is. So even work contributes to my happiness. My friends and everything I choose to do in my free time contributes to happiness, and so does my relationship with my gorgeous girlfriend, or the family I have, or any other part that is large enough to mention in your weekly or monthly schedule. It should add to that.
Okay.
And once you figure it out, I think you can find it in very small things and then try to do as many of them as possible. So, for instance, food is something that makes me kind of happy if it's done the right way. It can make me happy by doing it with the right people and really enjoying a meal together. It can also be as much as making your favorite sandwich or trying to make every single time you eat a party. It's the little things.
Yeah. So you already then mentioned what makes you happy.
Well, it's not just food, yeah.
But also work, I guess, plays a huge role.
Definitely, yeah. I think if you understand who you are and what makes you happy in work, whether it's achieving things or just being able to live off your talent instead of live off your time, right? It's a big difference. And I think to me, work, you've heard it all before, all these purpose things and whatever. But for me, creating things, opening doors or sharing information and inspiring people, that sort of makes me feel good. So I try to do as much as I can of that in my work. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful segue for the next question. You see, for this podcast, I have essentially a research hypothesis that I try and find out. And that is whether or not passion equals purpose.
Nope.
Interesting.
No, it doesn't.
Why don't you think so?
Because I think you can be very passionate about things that absolutely don't contribute to your purpose. And I think sometimes contributing to your purpose can be quite tough and not passionate at all. It could just be really hard work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as I said, I have passion for a lot of different things that don't necessarily comply to my work, and my work is also not all the time fixtured on creating purpose or even having any of that. I think it's the bigger picture. For me, purpose is a bigger picture. It's not a little thing you do every day.
Right.
And so I can be passionate about what I do, but I've also been very passionate about what I did when I didn't have a purpose. when
Right.
I was just executing my talent,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's the sweet spot if you can actually link your passion to purpose. That definitely unlocks a whole new level of happiness because you do so much of it, right? A lot of people work a lot of hours, so if that can be passionate, then already you're winning, and if that can be purposeful, then you won the jackpot.
The way you say it, you sound as if you have figured out what your purpose is. Could that be?
I think I figured out what feelings make me happy, and how to achieve them. And also found a way that when I contribute in my way, that I think it has purpose. So instead of just doing things for me, I think the second you involve others in any way, shape, or form, it starts to become more purposeful by design. And for me, it's like I found out that I just love to create. I'm a very creative person. So for me to be able to execute creativity every day, that makes me happy. The things I can create can make other people's happy. And that's when the sweet spot arrives, right?
Right.
So if I can make myself happy by making other people's happy, I keep saying people's, which is really funny. If I can make myself happy and while making other people happy,
Yeah.
then it becomes, more impactful.
Yeah.
And that to me is also purpose, right? Purpose is also a little bit of impact. So I like to think that by understanding myself and knowing that I'm a very creative person that would love to spend his days creating, building, and then sharing it with others, that is my purpose. And then you find it in different forms.
Yeah.
I can do that by opening restaurants, but I could do that by having an inspiration academy. I can do that by, the way I treat my friends or the personal events and parties that I throw. They're all linked in some way or another to me being creative and therefore happy
Yeah.
and sharing and giving to others and hoping that that makes them happy. So it's not a super sharp purpose yet, but it's definitely
It's getting there.
something.
Yeah, it's interesting. Was there like an active point when you started questioning that for yourself, or is this just what you learned as you went along?
I think I first learned what makes me happy. I think we all try different jobs, we all try different things, and then at the end you find something you're like, hey, maybe we should do this more often.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do this every day. Maybe I could do this for myself. And then you put yourself in the right position, and then after that you sort of reach that level, and then to me at least the second door opens, which says, okay, but now can we do it in a fashion or in a way that makes other happy or at least influences or touches their world?
Yeah.
And so by figuring that out, that brought me one further. And I think the long run, once you get a little bit older, you always start thinking about next generations and futures and whatever's going on. And so first I wanted to inspire myself every day. I just wanted to be inspired. Now I know how to do that. And I found out that I have the stories and ways of sharing that with others. So to me, that's the second thing. And then in total, I think in the long run, if I can inspire the future in a way, so that means next generations or literally shape tomorrow, that'll be something of a purpose for me.
Well, in 5 minutes, it's already working on me at least. So
There you go.
that's a good point. I'll take a little step back to understand how you sort of got to this point. And my question is what was your first experience with entrepreneurship like?
That's very funny. I don't think my first experience with entrepreneurship was a business.
Okay.
I think it was lack of business,
Right.
which made it very interesting. So I was born in Tel Aviv, and then I moved to the Netherlands with my parents and my brother and my sister. And then something weird happened because there was a language barrier. But
How old were you then, sir?
I was 5 or 6 years
Okay.
old.
Yeah.
And even though you're young, you still have a language barrier. And I was taught to speak Hebrew, but I was also taught to speak English. It wasn't very good yet, but it had a base. And so because of that base, I would prefer to watch English cartoons over Dutch ones. And not just cartoons. Cartoons turns into shows, content, whatever,
Yeah.
movies, everything. And before I knew it, I was in quite a small village watching American cartoons, American shows, MTV, all this kind of stuff. And all the images that I would see would inspire me. I'm like, wow, that artist looks really good, or this party looks amazing, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
By the time you turn about 13, 14, you're into that kind of stuff. And I found out that everything that I saw, I couldn't buy. Like literally, we're talking in a time with no Spotify, no really good web shops or whatever. So if I wanted music, I had to go and get it.
Yeah.
And then if I wanted special music, I would have to find someone that would import that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted something that someone was wearing in a music video, I would have to find someone who actually imported that brand.
Yeah.
So for me, the first thing of entrepreneurship was wanting something that I couldn't find.
Right.
And I was way too young to open a store or do whatever. But I was old enough to figure out how I could get it. And to me, that's entrepreneurship. So in Dutch, the word is tough because it's ondernemen. And ondernemen, they use that as the base for everything. Onderneming means business. Ondernemer means entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so it sort of got linked to owning a business. But to me, entrepreneurship is something that it's more of a lifestyle. It's more of a mindset that people have.
Right.
And you could do it in any way, shape, or form. You can do it in sports. You can do it while having a job. You could start your own business, whatever it is.
Yeah.
To me, the first time I saw it was just trying to get things I wanted that were not available. So I have to find creative ways or actually put in efforts to find those things, to change the fact that I couldn't get them.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time.
Right. So it's more like a mentality than...
Yeah, I think if I had the same ideas when I was like 20, I would have probably opened a store
Right.
that would have sold those clothes or that music.
Do you feel like you get taught that at school in any way?
No. Not in any way.
Is
No.
there even a way that you could teach that?
Yes.
And what specifically then?
I think there are two things that we could teach better to very young people. I mean, when we're talking like young people. I think the first one is there is always C. That's something I live by. So usually when there's a problem, there could be solution A or solution B. And whether that's 2, 4, 6, or 8 solutions doesn't matter. If the solution that is offered to you or that you can find is not the one you need or won't fix your problem, then actually being creative makes sure there's an answer C. It's something that's just not there yet,
Right.
but it could be.
Yeah.
I think everyone is creative in their own ways and not everyone will be able to find these solutions. But I do think everyone can understand that there's always the opportunity to find or build a new solution.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that just came natural to me. So if I ran into a wall, I was like, okay. So either it's walking around it, finding a ladder, shooting
Yeah.
myself from a giant cannon,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm going to get over this wall.
Right.
And, if you only know a ladder or the way around, then I think it's important for everyone to understand that there are people in this world that can think of cannons.
Yeah. You mentioned that creativity when solving that problem is essential. Now, you also said yourself that you're a creative guy.
Yes.
For those who don't consider themselves creative, does this then become a problem, or is it also there again more of it's not a literal creativity, but it's like figuring out ways to...
Again, I really think that you can understand something without being good at it.
Yeah.
And so...
Trying by doing then.
Yeah, but also everything is for sale.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm not good enough in numbers like most of the people in the world, we get accountants.
Yeah, exactly.
If we are too busy and we don't have time, but we do want to live properly, we get a cleaner for the house. It's not that I can't clean.
Yeah.
It's that I don't have the time.
Right.
So buying the time back, you can't buy time. So
No.
freeing time is the only virtue you have. And for me, it's not just the time. It actually stresses me out to think about something as simple as cleaning or doing laundry, because it's such a different skill. I mean, everyone can, do the wash or clean your house. That's not an issue at all. It's just that the amount of effort that it takes me to do it and the amount of time, if I work and do my thing, that makes me happy. So being creative or whatever, that then makes me happy. That also makes me more money than it costs to get a cleaner and gets me the time back. So
right. Even that is a creative solution around the problem, right?
Exactly. And this, for me, like, if you can get a cleaner, if you can get an accountant, you could also have a creative person on speed dial.
Yeah.
And whether that's a mentor who's just more experienced and sees more solutions.
Yeah.
Or an actual creative that will create something for you.
Right.
I think it should be as normal, as regular as, asking for help with a designer.
Yeah.
Right? It should be as simple as that.
Interesting. One of the surprises that I saw when looking at your experiences so far, also in the companies that you set up, is that you were also a DJ for a while.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's surprising to me is because, or interesting to me is maybe a better word, is because I was a DJ as well. And one of the whole reasons that eventually led me to developing this podcast was due to my realization that the music scene, as much as I loved it and as big a part of an identity it was for me, it wasn't going to pay the bills in the long run, I think. Or I lacked the self-belief, let me put it that way, to say I would break through in it. Was there ever a dream for you in that sense to break through as DJ, or was it always more a hobby? Or
I actually had quite a weird imposter syndrome thing going on when I was doing music. So I've always been super interested in storytelling and in the arts, any way, shape, or form, right? That could be design, it could be paintings, it could be music, it could be food styling. It doesn't matter to me. Everything that requires style, originality, a certain eye at an impressive level, that touches me. And so I've always been interested in music. And when music became visual, even more. So once videos were added to the mix and artwork and shows and everything was just getting crazier. And to me, I'm autodidact. I don't know if that's even a word in English, but where you sort of teach yourself anything. And I was looking at it, I was like, okay, I think I understand music. I couldn't play a single note, but I'm like, I think I can understand music. I could probably make music. And then I ended up managing one of the best producers in the world, if you ask me. And he was scoring hits after hits, and he was just, the kid was brilliant. He taught himself how to play piano on an Atari.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what?
Yeah.
And this type of stuff. And they were showing me again, right? If you like music, then option A would be to go and learn how to play an instrument, or B, being able to sing, or whatever it is. And then there's C. Like, I think I understand music, so I'm going to teach me through a Atari how to make the tones I'm looking for. I don't even know how it works technically, but it sounds good, right? So that's kind of an interesting thing. And through all of that, I just spent a lot of time in music. I was listening to a lot of music. I was checking out artists and the stories behind them and their campaigns. It was just fascinating to me. Later, I actually worked at a radio station, which was cool because then I could do a program, but I could also direct the music, right? So that was kind of cool. And later on, when I started doing parties and everything, everyone was like, yo, you have such a good taste in music. Why don't you program it? Why don't you get the DJs? And eventually that turned into, why don't you just play?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but there are people that are better than me.
Right.
Like, but that doesn't matter because you are part of this. It's your thing, and you play beautiful music. So why don't you do it? And so I started doing that, and that actually led to me picking up a microphone for the first time. And I was so comfortable as an MC, and there were way more DJs than there were MCs. So it was like a simple thing. As a MC, I could be part of a musical story, a DJ set, an act, an artist, whatever. But it was a different skill set. But I still understood music very well. So when I DJ, I do that simply because it gives me joy.
Yeah.
I really love doing that.
Yeah.
When I'm a host or an MC, I'm really good at that. That is something that, I figured out.
Yeah.
It just works from crowd control to music knowledge to whatever. It just fits my person very well. And so I was mostly known for being part of a DJ act, which didn't necessarily have me DJ, but I was more of an MC, just making sure that the party was a memorable night.
Yeah.
That all the energy was released, all the love was released. And that was kind of cool. But when I DJ, it's usually just me having fun with the music I love.
Yeah. Fair enough. So that there was no point that it was sort of just a moment like, this is fun now and we'll see how far we get with this, but it was never, It was not the 6-year-old in the basement. No, exactly.
Working forever until he's 16 to get his first record players and stuff. That wasn't part of my life. I was watching people do that. And I understood the game very well.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed doing it. But I never thought that would be my life.
No.
So I didn't treat it that way. I just really enjoyed having fun with it. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it was so pure that it worked.
Yeah.
Right? If someone has fun, that's
the best.
Not just the best, it's contagious. Right? It rubs off on other people. So it's authentic, it's real. People have a lot of fun. And so people started booking me and us and whatever. But it always stayed at like a local level until a few years that we did like European tours and we played like China and Suriname and Indonesia and Bali. And that's when you start to feel like, how did I end up here, right?
Yeah.
There's a million people who have a dream of doing that, and we sort of just did it. But the other half of the act was an original, and still is, an original artist. Yeah. And so it was only a little bit of imposter syndrome, me just being there like, oh God, how do we end up here?
Yeah.
But it's just if you're passionate for something, you do it very well, it could get you places.
Yeah.
Even if it's not even supposed to.
Right. Eventually, you took that passion and you went on to build the Avocado Show.
Well, yeah, that's a big jump in time. But yeah, true.
Even though things were going very great for you. And I found a very interesting quote by you, apparently, where you said, when things are going really well, you have to think about the next step.
Yeah, that's correct.
Why is this important?
Because what goes up comes down. And as I said, everything is simply a phase, right? Everything is a moment in time. So when things are going very, very well, it can only be followed by a time that is going less.
Yeah.
Right? And so I always try to figure out the next move. Like, okay, what are we doing after this to get back into the zone we are in right now? I don't take that zone for granted.
No.
I enjoy it while it's there, but still I think like, okay, cool. So now we're here, which means tomorrow we're not.
Yeah.
Which means the day after tomorrow, we need to be back here. That's simply how I do it.
Do you do something to actively remind yourself of that? Is it like after each win, okay, but, or?
No, I think it's a memento mori type of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just acknowledgement and understanding. If you've been somewhere a few times and you had these discussions with people, you're like, okay, we reached something and I know myself, I need to be challenged. I need to be creatively, sparked to do things. And so I really enjoy being on a peak when everything is going right.
Yeah.
But I simply know that's just life experience that things are going to change.
Right.
Which is fine. I don't mind at all. It's just that I know that it's coming and so I prepare.
Do you recall the moment, or was there even a specific moment that you thought, okay, it's time for the new challenge, and that challenge is going to be the Avocado Show?
No, it always just presents itself. Actually, in hindsight, it's kind of funny that every 5 years I really switch into a different position.
Yeah.
That's just who I am. I think that's my cycle. So we have an X amount of time to set something up and then an X amount of time to enjoy it. And then it's time for something else.
Yeah.
And so I think grass is always greener on the other side. So when I look at someone who had a dream and then built it and then did it for 60 years, I can be very positively jealous of that. Like, wow, that must be super relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just knowing what to do all the time. With me, it's the exact opposite. And people who have built really big businesses or have been doing the same thing for 30 years, they always come to me and they're like, oh man, you're living the dream. Every few years you're doing something else. So as I said, grass is always greener on the other side for people. But I also heard that grass is green where you water it. And that to me is super interesting. So I switch a lot. I was just like, I was a creative first. Then I started doing media. And then I worked for Bacardi for a few years. About 6 years, which brought me into so many countries and so many higher levels of corporate knowledge and campaigning and creativity and creating stuff, which was amazing. And then that led me into, okay, well, I like this, but I need to switch it. So instead of working for something, let me work for a lot of things. So I started with an agency, which went very well, but I tried to combine it with touring the world as DJ, which was kind of a weird thing. And so I partnered in there, and that just, I don't know, it got into disbalance. It wasn't going the way I wanted it to, which is fine because everyone has a different vision on the world. And I ended up doing another agency, so I sold that one, and then I ended up doing another one. And that's actually, the second one was, the first one was more of a social media agency, really doing campaigns and understanding communication. The second agency I had was more based on people as brands. So it was like right before influencers really came out, or that word really got coined. Like how can we turn people into brands, and what can we do with that, and what type of models go with that, like business model wise, how does that work? And that went very well, but it taught me how to think conceptually.
Yeah.
So not just creatively, but conceptually, right? Not just an idea, but a concept, like a bulletproof plan that had everything in it. And once I understood how to do that, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't turn it off. So I was servicing customers and clients, of course, but I also had all these ideas I didn't even have customers for. I didn't have a client that needed an avocado restaurant or any other idea, right? Which was kind of an interesting thing, but it put me together with one of my best friends, Julian Zal. And it was simply one of those ideas that's just too good to pass up.
Yeah.
We came together like, let's do something extra next year. Let's, start something. And that could have been anything. But we ended up doing the Avocado Show, and that just blew up.
Yeah. That's a great segue, because I need to quote you accurately. Before the opening night, you hadn't served a single plate, and yet by that point you had already accumulated 100,000 followers, 212 million views in the space of 2 weeks, 70 franchise requests, and people sleeping outside your store on opening night.
That's correct, yeah.
What does such a response do to you as a person?
It creates urgency in a way you've never felt before, or at least I've never felt before. And it makes you smile and excited. It gives you the drive people always talk about when they can't sleep because they're so excited.
Yeah.
That's what it does. So it's just, it's very motivating.
Yeah.
A response like that is super motivating. It's like surprising. It's
Was it at all overwhelming?
No, actually. Weird to say, but it wasn't.
Right.
It was just cool.
Because my follow-up question would have been, how do you deal with that kind of pressure come opening night? But if you don't experience that as pressure, I don't imagine there was much to.
Well, there's pressure, but first of all, you're not alone, right? So there's a team.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is pressure is good up to a certain degree. And in this case, it just kept snowballing. It just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the thing about snowballs is that you see every size of them. And so it's not like it went from 0 to 100. It did, but I also saw 1, 2, 10, 12, 17, you know what I mean? So this, even though it was just a very small amount of time, you had some time to adjust to this craziness.
Yeah.
Every day it got crazier. And that just builds up your energy, right? We're like, holy shit, yeah, this is going to be fun. We need to figure this out. We need to open. We need to get a team. We need to get a this and a that and whatever. And that was just a lot of fun, and it resonated with a lot of people. I think there's a difference when you make a product and then you sell 1 million of it or something, but you never talk to anyone.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing. In our case, we were talking to 1 million people before we sold anything.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very human. It's very social. It was super international. We're talking to every continent on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone had ideas. Everyone had a smile. It was just energizing.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Crazy. Just the thought of it, I couldn't imagine. I think that's really something you only understand once you've experienced it, probably, right?
Yeah, and it sounds weird because it's huge, but it's always in the little things, right?
Yeah.
It's the small things you remember. Like, I remember a few weird things. One of them was like, when we did the announcement, I looked at Julian and I said, well, this is it. Tomorrow, we're Mr. Avocado, right? Sort of jokingly to each other.
Wasn't a joke.
But that wasn't a joke, right? It just started happening. Every morning after that, I would just be woken up with 100 tags in every possible avocado content on Earth. Another moment was when one of the videos went super viral. We're talking like, we're just hitting refresh. And every time we hit refresh, we see like 100,000 views added. That's just nuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was me and him sitting behind this laptop going, there's no way this hits 1 million. There's no way this hits 2 million.
Yeah.
There's no way this hits 10 million. We're like, when is this going to stop? You know what I mean? Like, and it just kept going and going. And it was such a...
Is it at all dangerous in the sense that you might get accustomed to expecting each post to then perform in the same way? Or how do you prevent yourself from that?
No, I think it was so big that everyone understood it was just a unicorn, right?
Right.
That it was this weird moment in time that happened. I don't think it's dangerous to think that everything will be like that. I think it's dangerous to think everything will be like that. Because then you don't do any other work or any other, you don't have options.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So when it's going well, right, we're going viral, we're thinking, okay, what happens after this?
Right.
Because it's going really good right now, but how do we promote our stuff after this, right?
Yeah.
So you're enjoying it, but you're also preparing.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. It also, weirdly enough, gave me an insight on the other side, which was like, this was super positive.
Yeah.
Right? This was positive news. This was standing ovations, applause, and love and heart emojis all day long. If this would have been negative, right? Some people catch a negative viral or whatever. Wow, that must have such an impact on a person. So it gave us a bit of clarity, a bit of understanding of how powerful the internet actually is.
Yeah.
And what it does. And we're very grateful it was a positive wave and we had a lot of fun doing it. And we had a few after that as well. So I think, it was a...
Originally it started, or like the original idea was more as a side project, right?
Yeah, it was
From
a
what I
hobby.
just understood. Do you think it would have blown up in the same way if you had started it with the intention that it would become massive?
I don't know. I think part of it being quirky was part of its success also. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we had, user-generated content that we just, were 2 or actually 3 back in those days, people who were just trying to do something.
Yeah.
That was so relatable. And so easy to share and to comprehend and to like or love, versus if we made this super Hollywood movie, The Avocado Show is coming to Amsterdam. You know what I mean? It can be impressive, but it's less likable. So I think the only reason we went viral is because a lot of people were happy and excited about our idea. I think if we made it too cool or too bravura or whatever, then that would never have resonated with that amount of people.
Yeah. Understandable. Some may say you got lucky. Do you believe in luck?
Do I believe in luck? I do in a certain way.
Do you believe that was the case here?
No, I don't at all, actually.
I wouldn't say so either, but...
No, because I think it's quite... We can sort of trace back the steps in hindsight and explain what happened. The easiest way to explain it is this. If you and I would go to a supermarket right now, any supermarket, and we would stop the first 50 people coming through the door, any people, and we would ask them, name one brand of bananas, then they would say...
Chiquita.
Chiquita. If we would stop them and we would say, name one brand of cucumbers.
No idea.
How many people do you know eat cucumber?
A lot.
A lot, right? So this is sort of what happened with the avocado. There was just a lot of people who actually eat avocados.
Right.
But there wasn't one clarified king brand that was known all over the world. And so there was this gigantic user group of people consuming avocados, hundreds of millions of people, that didn't have a Disneyland. They didn't have one place to come together or to look up to or to whatever, right? There was just nothing.
Yep.
And I don't think it's luck. I think it could be an accident, right? We accidentally found a really big user base that enjoyed a product which we then Disneyfied. And I think that's cool, but that's not luck. It's not random.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Just curious to see what the...
Yeah, I don't think it's luck. I think actually in hindsight, you can try and do it all over again. It's just really hard to find a needle in a haystack like that.
Yeah.
We accidentally found it, and then we accidentally founded it. Both, you know? And then it just went.
Yeah. When you started the Avocado Show, you didn't really have any experience in hospitality yet, except for nightlife, but running restaurants or wasn't known yet. Usually that would stop a lot of people from trying.
Never understood why.
And why didn't it stop you?
I would never understand why something like that would get in your way. Ever.
Does that come entirely back to this look for a creative solution again? Or
Well, yeah, or look for a solution, right? There's always a way of doing things.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, if someone would task me, if we were living in the Middle Ages and someone would task me and says, the king orders you to, deliver an opera song. Okay. I've never sung opera before, and I never wrote opera lyrics before.
Yeah.
But if the king wants it, right, if there's urgency in some way, then you would find a solution. You would find an opera singer, and then you would listen to the song and hope that your contribution to it could be like, oh yeah, I think this is a good one, and then you'll send it.
Yeah.
It's the same with us. So there are so many people who really understand how restaurants work, right? Managers, front of house, back of house, chefs, whatever. I don't have to reinvent that wheel.
Right.
I just need to understand that there is a wheel and then find the right people.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to us. And we found out that the way we did it is actually easier than the other way around. I think it's easier to be a creative brand marketing kind of person who understands communication very well, and then figuring out the operational part, which a lot of people already know. So it's just buying talent, right? So getting talent to me is easier than finding the right idea. And so if you look at doing things the other way around, there's a lot of people who started restaurants that do know what they're doing,
Yeah.
but then have the problem of figuring out how do we
Market.
crystallize this idea? How do we make this idea a concept, right?
Yeah.
And whether that's marketing or branding or communication or whatever it is, content, socials, they would have no clue.
Yeah.
And so I think the way we did it is actually easier.
Yeah. So at no point when you went into this whole thing did you feel like you had imposter syndrome?
No, because I wasn't trying to work in the restaurant.
Right.
I was trying to make a restaurant work.
Yeah. Interesting. How just the phrasing of it already makes it become more understandable or like more achievable, I think also.
Yeah. So like, I always think of when you go wash your car,
Mm-hmm.
then there's two options, right? There's like a mechanical washing street where everything happens, and then there's the do-it-yourself manual version of it, right? And I always wonder, like, was this opened by the king of, the national champion of washing cars? No. You don't need to understand how to wash cars to open a car wash.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There are so many things that can just be done by someone understanding the basics of business or the basics of having a brand, that all the operational stuff can be figured out.
Yeah.
In our case, we thought it would be small. So, if you would ask me to come up with or organize an international franchise which operates in 6 countries on a hospitality scale, that's a different question. But that wasn't the question when we started. The question when we started was, can Jules and I, together with a chef, Jamie, can we figure out how to run a really small 42-seat restaurant in the Pijp? Yeah, of course we can.
Yeah.
That's not rocket science. We find the right people and we do it.
Yeah.
And then you enter door number 2 when it's like, can we franchise this? Can we put this in another country? Same thing. You just go and find experts, from very experienced staff members to companies like Francorp or whatever, who you can ask for advice and they can help you and whatever. And once you pass number 1, you do number 2. And then, someone wants 8 of these. Okay, let's figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And so it goes step by step. You scale into these things.
Just processing, that's all. One of the main things that I ran into time and time again in why I, not only myself, but also other people I know, why they stopped themselves from achieving things is the fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say worst case scenario, the Avocado Show were to fail now. Would you regret having tried?
Never. Ever. Of course not. Are you nuts? No. To me, it's like we already achieved what I wanted to achieve, which is, create an idea that resonates with the world. We did that. And after that comes business. So, the fuzzy part is done. And then the business part now is, can we build it out properly? Do we have the knowledge and the people to take the right steps to get this from 1 to 10, 10 to 50, 50 to 100?
Yeah.
Can we go to every country? Can we make this a global brand? I'm already happy that we did.
Yeah.
Right?
It's also insane. That
it
should
is
be
insane,
mentioned,
yeah.
But I don't know, maybe I guess another underlying question about it is, to what extent do you become tied to its success, in the sense of, if this fails, do I fail,
Of course. Yeah. If it fails, then it fails because of a reason.
Yeah.
It fails because of you probably made the wrong decisions or whatever. If there's an excuse, like Corona, COVID, then people will let you off the hook. But if it's not, then yeah, it could be tagged on you personally, but I much rather look at, apparently we're able to create ideas that resonate with the world.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
That to me is something. And I remember I met Jazzy Jeff once, which is funny. Actually, I met him the week after we launched the Avocado Show. And I was in Chile with him, and he was just doing like this speech about music.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something that resonated in my mind forever and ever. And he said, if you make music, if you literally make music, you go into a place and you create music, you won. That's it.
Yeah.
You have won. Now, whether that song then goes off to be a hit or whatever it is, that's the bonus. But if you were able to create music that day, you won. That's how he lives. And I was like, wow, yeah. The amount of unreleased music or stuff that artists do, or even like if you take athletes or a footballer that scores the greatest, most unbelievable goal in the world during practice. Mm-hmm. Are you not happy with that goal? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's as far as I see it, if you are a footballer, you should be happy if you can play football.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a musician, you should be happy you can play music. As a creative, I'm just happy I can create.
Yeah.
The business part is the absolute perfect bonus. And that is something why we have, investors and C-level management teams and all these business goals, which are super important to me as well. But the one thing they can never take away from you is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing you already achieved, the global resonance. So to me, the path chosen is actually a funny thing because I'm mentally working on this as we speak. So, everyone has phases in their life. This one's mine. So the first time I was in New York, it was a dream, right? You go to New York, wow, big city, cool. But I had no plan, zero. So the only thing I did was I only followed green lights. I would walk, and if it was green, I would cross. And if it was red, I would take a left or a right. That's simple. Which allowed me to explore parts of New York I would never see without doing that. And it brought me fun, and I discovered some things, and it was kind of cool and everything about it. Later, about 10 years later, when I returned to New York, I had a plan. I wanted to talk to these people. I wanted to see these places. I wanted to do all of that. That was more effective, right? That contributed more towards my goals. But it made me discover way less than the first time when I was just walking around. And to me, that's the perfect example of inbound and outbound. So I think the first half of my professional career, I was mostly focused on inbound. If there was a chance, I would jump on it and I would create it and I would learn myself or teach myself how to do it and go. Now I'm far, how do you say that? I'm way more and further in planning and trying to figure out, okay, what's the goal of this thing? Where are we going exactly? What do I want to do? Mm-hmm. And it's more outbound. So ideas can come by and I can skip them and say, no. This is where I'm going, so I can't do this.
Yeah.
Even on a personal level, right? Which makes it super interesting. So I think I really, really enjoyed going through life and only going where it was green.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to the other half of it as well. We're like, okay, now we're going to move mountains.
Yeah. It sounds like that development, though, fits the development of what is required from you from your business, right? Because the bigger you grow, the more it becomes less of a one-man store. And instead you have, I don't know how many by now. What is it, 17 or something?
No, we have, I think, 11 open by now, and we have another 20-something coming.
Yeah, exactly. Like, naturally, that the bigger picture becomes far more important, especially if you want to stick to the constant standards and stuff that you expect. So it's funny to see how that seems like an organic development, at least for me as an out.
Well, there is part of an organic development. And the beautiful thing of it, you already asked me, was like, if we would have planned it, that's why it wouldn't have worked.
No.
Right? So I believe we made some really weird decisions. The most obvious ones being having a pink velvet couch. That's the worst idea ever for a restaurant.
Yeah.
That is popular, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you want a franchise. But we weren't worried about franchising or any other thing. I just wanted my place to look cool.
Yeah.
And then, the plant walls and all these other things that we were picking, they only made sense, actually, if you would open one restaurant. And so by not thinking about all the other ones, just taking whatever's green, taking every green light, to me, it was like, yo, could we do a pink couch? Because I would love it. I would just love it, right?
Yeah.
That's a different thing than planning a restaurant that needs to stay within budget and can be copied anywhere in the world with materials that can last and,
Yeah.
So I think everyone should start out just following the green lights. And then eventually you'll discover and learn so much you can make a plan.
Would that then also be your answer to this path question? As you're trying to figure out, just take as many green lights as you can, and eventually it'll become...
Yeah, I think a lot of people are so busy with trying to figure out their path that they stand still while figuring it out. That's not the way to do it. Grab green and figure it out. Just go places.
Yeah.
Talk to people. You have no idea. You'll be so surprised. And the greatest insights and inspiration to me has always come from a different place. I find solutions if I go to a place where I expect them, right? So if I have a question about marketing and I go to a marketeer, I'll get my answer.
Yeah.
But that's not inspiring. That's a solution. If I want new marketing ideas for my restaurant, and I go and watch how fashion does it or how a car is sold, that's inspiration. You look at something and say, wow, okay, that idea is original. I'm going to take that, transfer it, and put it onto a different industry. That's when you're inspired and you figure something out. And so I just enjoy being inspired more than finding solutions. Finding solutions is awesome when you're in a rush.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise I would much rather just find the magic in life.
So then also stimulate having conversations with people who maybe have opposite views to you.
Even partnering with them.
Yeah. Or,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Not just having conversations, you could even partner with them. Like a creative will not be as good in operational business or operational excellence as an operational person would be, who then is less strong in my field.
Yeah.
It's the yin and yang. You need to figure out a way of mutual respect and fun and a relationship that works, but then having your own powers to bring to the table.
Yeah.
That makes us twice as fast as anyone else. Because if there's trust and they tell me, yo, you do the creative part, okay, cool. I'm off doing that. And I'm trusted in my strength. But the same goes the other way around, right? Something needs to be fixed operationally. I'm not, getting in the way or trying to figure. We're not doing the same work at the same time. We're doing it parallel. That's speed.
Yeah. I read in an interview that you once received a franchise offer to establish like between 10 and 20 stores in one go. Like,
yes. I think even more, actually.
Either way, it's super impressive, but you turned it down because you considered that short-term thinking.
Correct.
What was that conversation like with yourself when turning that down? Because I imagine there was a lot of money on the table, probably.
Yeah, but it's not about short-term money or short-term vision. Something like this, when you're trying to build a global brand that's going to take years and years and years, and you need to make the right decisions. And first of all, it wasn't just my decision; it was the team's.
Of course.
But it's kind of simple. If you're a good boxer, and you're good, you won a few fights, that's cool. If someone shows up and says, "Hey, Mike Tyson challenges you to get in the ring," would you do it? Or would you wait until you're champion level?
Well, yeah.
Probably the latter, right?
Yeah.
It's the same feeling. So It's not that we don't want to do that. It's just that we weren't ready and we knew it.
Yeah.
So we want to take the right steps, and the right steps means operational excellence on every level you hit. And we were, first of all, figuring out two things. The first one was the narrative. What is the next step for this brand? Is it immediately going from 1 to selling 20 in one place, or is it going to Paris and Madrid and London and Germany and Brussels, and having this longer story of success while also having the time to figure out how that works? And then after that, sign a 10 or 20 deal.
Mm-hmm.
That makes more sense, right? So we chose for that.
You spoke quite a bit about your co-founder. How important is it to have a co-founder in this whole journey?
In this case, there was no way of doing it without him. Not a single way. I wouldn't want to, and I don't think it would have worked in any way. Simply because it requires so many different talents and disciplines. And the amount of work was a mountain. So we really needed each other, and we complemented each other and our visions and our talents. So in that case, it was super important because, as I said, we are not a restaurant.
Yeah.
We have restaurants. We're a brand. So the brand part is actually a business. And then the restaurant by itself is actually a business. So it's two businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then multiplied. So doing that as one person is practically impossible. And also, I don't think I have the right character to do that. I'm not the right personality type to do that type of thing. So in this case, Julian is absolutely unmissable. But not in every case. I think there are businesses where all you need is vision, and then every other person's opinion will distract you from the vision. So there are things and projects you need to do alone, and there are some that you need to do together.
Yeah. So my podcast is called The Quarter Life Crisis.
Okay.
Did you have a quarter life crisis?
Probably had two of them.
Okay.
For whatever that means. It's very hard to identify something like that because I already lived as a thrill seeker.
Mm-hmm.
So usually quarter life or midlife crisis puts people in this position where urgency of time comes into the front of their awareness, and all of a sudden they make weird moves. I always made weird moves. So it's like, I probably had a whole life crisis.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Probably.
Yeah. So yeah, I do think it's a thing of these times. It's a sign of the times. People at 25 wonder why they don't have, a jet, a house, 2 cars, and 7 kids yet.
Only daily.
Exactly. And yet I don't really see why. I think that is something we should teach a lot of people. Like, hey, there's a cadence, there's a timing for everything, and not everything is for everyone. So that's fine. You can live at your own tempo.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a template of how a lot of people do it, but that's not necessarily how it has to be. I did know that when I was like 25, I was very aware of the fact that I was super free. I could go and do anything, anytime, anywhere, because there were less restrictions or less responsibilities or whatever. And so I think to me, I didn't have a quarter life crisis. I had a quarter life urgency to really enjoy that moment in time and travel the entire world, stay up late nights, do everything, be young.
Yeah.
Right? And now I'm a little bit older and we need to figure out other things, stability, family, homes, these type of things. Strategic, yeah. But I want to do that without losing who I am.
Right. Final question.
Okay.
Since things are going really well, what's next for Ron?
For me as a person?
Whatever comes to mind.
Well, with the Avocado Show, I think what's next is another big step, right? So we went from 0 to 1. We had that. And then we went from 1 to 10. And we had that. And I think now is going to be this big scale moment where we need to figure out how to really move up a few levels and play with the big boys. I think that's going to be very cool. With Skybox, which is the inspiration academy that I'm building, which has a membership to inspire people to become better. I think inspiration sparks success. That's really what I believe in. And we're just trying to curate and answer the question, how could I, as a person, give you all my knowledge, all my inspiration in my entire network? Could I transfer that to you? The answer is yes, but it takes time. And so we created a year program that does that, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very much working on that. And as a person, I just want to grow into a position where I literally live and breathe everything I want to do every day. Be the person you want to be to yourself, be the person you want to be to others. Use your talents in ways that they're effective and have impact. This is the type of stuff I'm looking at. So just a lot of work, man. Work on myself, working on cool projects and a lot of other things. But to me, it doesn't feel like work. So it's like having the coolest hobby in the world, I guess.
Amazing. There were so many profound things that you said throughout the entire talk that I'm very thankful for your time. And
You're super welcome.
I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to see what's still to come.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Stay tuned.
Yes. Thank you.
Welcome.